Deep within the heart of the Jundu swamps in Zambia, the air hangs thick with a humidity that feels like a physical weight upon the chest. Here the waters are tea-colored and opaque, hiding secrets that have remained undisturbed since the dawn of time itself. The locals speak in hushed whispers of a creature that defies the modern laws of biology, a relic of a world long forgotten. They call it the Kongamato, a name that sends a shiver through even the bravest of hunters when the sun begins to dip below the horizon. Legend says the name means breaker of boats, a title earned through centuries of terrorizing those who dare to navigate the treacherous marshlands. Our story follows Kalo, a young man from the Lunda tribe, who possessed a curiosity far greater than the fear instilled by his elders. Kalo was not a man of superstitions. He was a man of the earth, a fisherman who knew every bend of the river like the palm of his hand. His grandfather, an old storyteller named Muenba, often warned him about the shadows that move against the wind. Kalo, the sky does not always belong to the birds, Mumba would say. Pointing a gnarled finger toward the darkening canopy, Kalo would often laugh, thinking the old man was simply trying to keep him close to the safety of the village fires. But one evening, as the dry season began to turn the wetlands into a maze of mud and shallow pools, the atmosphere changed. The usual chorus of cicadas and frogs fell into an eerie, suffocating silence that felt like a predator's breath. Kalo was paddling his dugout canoe, his spear resting at his side, as he searched for the rare tigerfish near the forbidden Mutanda Falls. The water here was deeper, swirling in dark eddies that seemed to pull at the very soul of anyone who stared too long. Suddenly, a massive ripple broke the surface of the water, several yards ahead of his small craft. It wasn't the smooth glide of a crocodile or the heavy splash of a hippo. It was something far more erratic and violent. Kalo gripped his paddle, his knuckles turning white as he watched a dark shape rise from the depths. Above him, the trees began to rustle, though there was no breeze to speak of in the stagnant air of the swamp. Then came the sound, a leathery, rhythmic flapping that echoed off the ancient bark of the waterlogged trees. Flap, flap, flap. It was the sound of skin stretched tight over bone, moving with a power that defied the laws of the sky. Kalo looked up and saw a silhouette that blotted out the remaining shards of the setting sun. It looked like a lizard, but with wings that spanned the width of his entire canoe, red and translucent against the fading light. Its skin was hairless, a bruised purple-black hue, and its beak was lined with sharp serrated teeth that glinted like shards of obsidian. This was no bird. This was the Kongamato, the flying demon of the Jendu, descending from the heavens with hunger in its eyes. Kalo dived into the water just as the creature's talons raked across the wooden hull of his boat, splintering the aged timber. The water was cold and tasted of silt and decaying vegetation as Kalo fought to stay beneath the surface. He watched from below as the beast circled back, its shadow dancing on the surface of the water like a harbinger of doom. The Kongamato screamed a piercing metallic shriek that vibrated through the water and rattled Kalo's very bones. He knew he couldn't stay submerged forever, for the swamp was home to other terrors that hunted in the dark. With a desperate burst of energy, he swam toward the gnarled roots of a massive mangrove tree, hoping for cover. As he pulled himself onto the muddy bank, he could hear the creature landing nearby, its heavy weight snapping branches like dry tinder. It walked with a peculiar gait, using its folded wings as front limbs, moving more like a bat than any creature of the earth. Kalo pressed his back against the rough bark, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He remembered Moenba's words, "The Kongamato sees the heat of your blood. It does not need the light of the moon." The young fisherman realized that his skepticism had been a shield made of glass, and it had finally shattered. He reached for his belt and found his small hunting knife, a meager defense against a monster from the prehistoric past. The creature began to sniff the air, its long neck snaking through the foliage as it searched for its escaped prey. God. Notice the creature's eyes. They were large, glowing with a faint, internal amber light that seemed to burn with ancient intelligence. It wasn't just a mindless beast. It was an entity, a guardian of the swamp's most forbidden zones. Legends spoke of the Kongamato guarding treasures or gateways to the spirit world, and Kalo realized he had wandered too far. He crawled through the mud, moving with the silence of a shadow, trying to reach a nearby clearing where the village path began. Every time the creature turned its head, Kalo froze, becoming one with the earth and the roots. The swamp seemed to be conspiring against him, with thorns catching his skin and vines tangling around his ankles. Just as he reached the edge of the thicket, a branch snapped under his weight with a sound as loud as a gunshot. The Kongamato hissed, its wings unfurling in a terrifying display of dominance and aggression. It launched itself into the air, the wind from its wings knocking Kalo backward into the muck. He looked up to see the creature diving, its beak open wide to deliver a crushing blow. Ga-ga! Kalo rolled to the side, and the beast's beak slammed into the mud where his head had been a second before. He scrambled to his feet and began to run, his lungs burning and his vision blurring from the sheer exhaustion of terror. Behind him, he could hear the creature taking flight again, the flapping sound growing louder and closer with every stride. He reached the village outskirts just as the moon rose high, casting long skeletal shadows across the landscape. The village dogs began to howl, a mournful sound that signaled the presence of something unholy. Kalo burst into his grandfather's hut, collapsing onto the dirt floor, gasping for air that refused to come. Moimba looked down at his grandson, his eyes filled with a sad understanding that required no explanation. "It found you, didn't it?" the old man whispered, reaching for a bowl of charred herbs to calm the boy's spirits. Kalo could only nod, his body shaking with a primal tremor that he couldn't control. Outside, the sound of wings circled the hut once, twice, and then faded into the distance of the deep marsh. The village was safe for now, but the mark of the Kongamato remained on Kalo's soul. For weeks, Kalo refused to go near the water, haunted by the amber glow of those ancient predatory eyes. He learned that he was not the first to survive, but those who did were forever changed by the encounter. They became the keepers of the legend, the ones who ensured the stories were told so that others might live. The Lunda people believe that the Kongamato is a spirit of the earth that refuses to die, a bridge between what was and what is. Some say it is a pterosaur that survived the Great Extinction, hidden in the inaccessible depths of the African interior. Others believe it is a manifestation of the swamp's own anger at the intrusion of man into its sacred silences. As Kalo grew older, he took his grandfather's place as the village storyteller. Sitting by the fire as the children gathered, he would tell them of the flapping shadow of the leather wings and the teeth that could crush a boat like a dry leaf. He taught them to respect the boundaries of nature, to listen when the swamp falls silent. "There are things in this world," Kalo would say, "that do not wish to be discovered or understood." He would show them the scars on his arms, thin white lines, where the thorns of the swamp had claimed their price. But the real scar was the one no one could see, the memory of the Kongamato's shriek echoing in his dreams. The Jundu swamps remain a place of mystery, where modern maps fail to capture the true essence of the land. Explorers from distant lands still come searching for the living fossil, armed with cameras and sensors. But the Kongamato does not reveal itself to those who seek fame or scientific proof. It reveals itself to those who lose their way. It remains the master of the air and the water, a sentinel of the ancient world that refuses to step into the light of the present. Even today, pilots flying over the region report strange radar anomalies and glimpses of large winged shapes. They speak of shadows that move faster than any bird, disappearing into the mist before they can be identified. The Kongamato is more than a monster. It is a reminder that our planet is still vast, wild, and largely unknown. It represents the spirits, monsters, and entities that define the cultural tapestry of the African continent. From the Makombemd to the Ads, these creatures are the personification of our deepest fears and wonders. They remind us that we are guests on this earth, and there are powers far older than our civilizations. Kalo lived to be an old man, and on his final night, he asked to be carried to the edge of the river. The moon was full, reflecting off the water in a ribbon of silver that seemed to lead into eternity. As he sat there, he heard it one last time, the distant, rhythmic flapping of leathery wings. He didn't feel fear this time. He felt a strange sense of peace, as if a long-awaited conversation was finally concluding. The shadow passed over the moon, a great winged king returning to its throne in the dark. Kalo smiled, closed his eyes, and let his spirit drift into the mists of the Jundu. The legend of the Kongamato continues to breathe through the rustle of the reeds and the splash of the dark water. It is a story of survival, of respect, and of the thin veil between our world and the realm of the supernatural. Every time a boat is found overturned or a strange cry is heard in the night, The name is spoken again. Kongamato, the breaker of boats, the master of the swamp. Let this tale serve as a warning to those who think they have conquered the wild places of the world. For in the shadows of the trees, where the light fails to reach, something is always watching. Something that has been flying since the beginning and will fly long after we are gone. The flapping shadow is not just a myth. It is a living part of the Earth's ancient beating heart. We must learn to live alongside these mysteries, for they are the soul of our stories and the depth of our history. Thank you for journeying with us into the heart of the swamp to meet the Kongamato. The world is full of legends waiting to be told, and spirits waiting to be remembered. Please don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe to Storycraft Studio to help us bring more of these incredible myths to life.